Scared for reals.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
Adam Perry.
This time around, we have one of the greatest folk horror films of all time.
Absolutely.
When everyone talks about folk horror films, there's three movies: Blood on Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man, and Witchfinder General.
And which one are we talking about today,
We're
Chris?
talking about Witchfinder General
The
today,
Vincent Price classic.
from 1968. The third and final film from Michael Reeves.
Yes.
He passed away like a few months after the film was made, and I think he had an accidental barbiturate overdose with alcohol. That's a
combination.
That's a lethal combination. If he only could have saved himself, who knows what he could have done. He was like 25 years old. That was like the age of Orson Welles when he made his first movie.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the Witchfinder General. In America, it was known as The Conquering Worm.
Chris, do you know why they had two different titles?
Well, because American International Pictures co-funded the project.
Okay.
And they were on a Vincent Price kick because, well, previously there were several Roger Corman-directed films which had Vincent Price in. They were all Edgar Allan Poe themed. Mm-hmm. So, hey, let's just call this movie The Conqueror Worm after one of Edgar Allan Poe's poems, even though it has nothing to do with Edgar Allan Poe. Just like most movies based on Edgar Allan Poe, they have nothing to do with the actual Edgar Allan Poe story.
So they were just using the Poe and the Vincent Price combination to kind of sell it.
And that was the thing. Michael Reeves, he was excited about making this movie, but he wanted Donald Pleasance.
Interesting.
But he was stuck with Vincent Price, which he did not like. He let Vincent Price know exactly, I did not want you in this movie.
Wow.
Imagine saying that at this time, Vincent Price has established himself as a horror film star. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more of a cult horror film star, but still the guy had been in 80-some-odd movies.
He was a name.
He was a name. You know who Vincent Price was.
Right.
At the time, not as many people knew Donald Pleasance.
Right.
You know, he'd been in The Great Escape. He'd had some movies in the 60s. I don't even think he played Blofeld yet. So, I mean, Donald Pleasance was still...
I'd have to look that up, but yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, he did You Only Live Twice. I think it came out a year after Witchfinder General, if my memory serves me correctly. But, I mean, Vincent Price is a bigger name.
Yeah.
More people know, even... I think now after Halloween, Donald Pleasance has a cult name of his own. But before Halloween, I think Donald Pleasance was he was one of those awesome character actors. Sure. I mean, he was a villain in Will Penny, a Charlton Heston Western. Very creepy villain. He was really good at playing the villains.
I mean, I honestly, I think he would have been fantastic in this role. But, I mean, Vincent Price,
the funny thing is,
an iconic role for him.
Even though Michael Reeves hated him, Vincent Price still says that this is his best horror performance. He's quoted as saying that.
I agree. I agree.
He's brilliant. And apparently Michael Reeves, he did anything he could to just antagonize him. And like one time I was reading behind the scenes stuff. Apparently Vincent Price fell off the horse. He just left him there. He didn't go see how he was doing because he thought it would add to the meanness of his performance.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
it's definitely a more toned down Vincent Price than we're used to seeing, which I kind of like.
Well, and that's the thing. Michael Reeves thought he was hamming it up, so he purposely toned down his performance.
Right.
And I think that was great.
Yes. Yeah.
Who knows what Michael Reeves would have done after this? I mean, Witchfinder General, it was a success, but at the same time, it's even more loved now than it was in 1968. Because, I mean, people, again, it's like the third, at least the top tier of the folk horror genre.
Absolutely.
And rightfully so. I mean, Matthew Hopkins, which Vincent Price, brilliantly portrayed, was a real person. Mm-hmm. But he didn't die in his midlife. He literally was, I don't even think he was 30 years old. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand, I mean, they get the Matthew Hopkins character right where he was a lawyer. But the thing is, he was a self-appointed witch hunter and
as
fighter of the occult.
Most of them were back in.
Well, yeah. But the movie kind of like he's like a bounty hunter kind of.
Right.
That he even gets the approval from the local law enforcement, which in reality he didn't. But I think there were over 500 deaths that he was responsible for in real life.
Crazy.
I mean, this is all before he was 30.
Yeah.
And he did have a partner too, just like in real life in the movie. But yeah, you've got just in case you haven't watched this movie, we're going to be delving into the whole plot. So, I mean, I think it's kind of premature. We're kind of past the point of spoiler alert since the movie's 56 years old.
Right.
I think it's okay. But in case you haven't, watch the movie first. And the screenplay is actually based on a novel. Again, it's not based upon the real Matthew Hopkins. They just take the name and what he did in real life and they embellish it and make it into a fun horror film for us. But it's based on a novel written by Ronald Bassett. Very, very fictionalized. And you got to remember, this is during the English Civil War. So this is back in 1645.
Right.
Time of Cromwell fighting the king.
Yep.
Yep. You had these, as Adam even said, these were self-appointed witch hunters, trying to drive out evil and the occult, or they think they were doing that, but they were evil.
Yeah, well,
they were evil. They were more evil than what they thought they were fighting.
Yeah, it really was a worldwide, I would say, a pandemic. I would go as far as to say that because us in America, I mean, we're so used to the Salem witch trials,
right?
But you got to understand that this started overseas way before our colonies and the Puritans turned against themselves,
right?
So, fun fact, talking about our witch trials, like over in England and overseas, they were way more vicious with their witches because in Salem, the witches were, I mean, as horrible as well, it was just hung and one was pressed. Over there, they drowned them, they burnt them, they hung them. They tortured
raped them first.
Tortured these poor people.
Because there's this priest that the village, half the village doesn't like.
Yeah.
That's how the story starts off. You got this priest. Well, after the burning of a witch, you see, Matthew Hopkins over in the background watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But after that's during the credits. But you see, like literally, that this town is kind of divided against this priest,
right?
And his niece. They accuse him of witchcraft. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You think they accuse her witch. Witch you don't think of as a male.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But her uncle, very, of course he doesn't agree with the whole Civil War thing. So witch. Just like now, I don't want to bring up too much of our politics now, but this movie is just as relevant today, probably even more relevant, because look, if you don't agree with what the politicians are saying, the ones in power, you're labeled a racist, a bigot.
Well, yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. 1645. Only they didn't say racist. They say witch.
Yeah. Fascinating. Again, not to stray too far from the movie. Bill O'Reilly, and I know some people are going to shudder when they hear that name. Forget his politics, forget his political views, but he has
forgive his temper tantrums.
Yeah, he has a wonderful series called Killing.
Yeah,
and
he's quite the writer.
And he has a co-writer. I think it's Martin Dugard. And what these guys do is they just break down events in history.
Right.
So you got Killing Lincoln, Killing Kennedy, Killing England, which is about the Revolutionary War. Their last one that came out in October was Killing the Witches, which is all about the Salem witch trials. And what he does brilliantly in this book is he brings it to today's relevancy.
Yeah.
And like how important freedom of religion was to our Constitution. But it really is, and it's a good point you say this, Chris. It's instead of back in 1692 where you were accused of a witch and hung. Now you're, like you said, if you don't agree with a way of life, you're labeled something and then basically discarded, banished.
Right.
You're not allowed to be on social media. You lose your job. You lose your identity. Basically, the same concept of what happened. It's a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Point blank.
Yeah.
So I mean, a movie like this and learning about this history is really relevant to today's culture.
And it's scary in a way because they're not like physically killing everyone. They either lead to they make someone feel so depressed that they kill themselves, or they're just cut off.
They're just ostracized, and that's again, going back to these real witch hunters back in the 1600s.
Right.
That was the deal, especially in Salem. If you admitted to being a witch, they didn't kill you. They just banished you from society. They took your property, they took all your belongings, and they kicked you out of the town. And
sounds kind of like today.
And it's just, I bet you it's the same thing in England. Like if you admitted you were a witch, you probably lived through it. They just you didn't exist anymore. Not there. You were branded.
Right.
But if you said, no, I'm not a witch, and you were found guilty, it was curtains for you.
It's interesting how everyone who said I was not a witch, they were deemed a witch.
And a lot, and again, it goes back to, political corruption. It was all about, this pastor wanted that guy's land, he wasn't going to give it up. So, all of a sudden his daughter's a witch.
Right.
Or he's a witch.
Again, it's like how... A witch, I thought, was female, but I guess a witch is whomever they wanted the witch.
Well, again, we're talking about these witch hunts, and as Americans, we always go back to the sound. But the James Giles pressing, I mean, that was literally all the reason why he refused to plead guilty or not guilty was because if he knew that if he was to plead, they would take off his land. But if he kept his mouth shut, they could kill him, and all of his property would still be given to his family.
Right.
And that's why he allowed himself to be pressed.
Right.
To save his property for his family as an inheritance.
Right.
I mean, how incredible. So again, I mean, watching a movie like Witchfinder generally, it's crazy because it was real. Right. I mean, this is stuff really happened in our history.
Well, and it's like over 200 years before our own Civil War in the United States. So you have Richard Marshall. He's a young Roundhead, and he's survives a brief skirmish, and he kills his first enemy soldier, saving the life of his captain, which plays a very important role later on. He rides back to visit his fiancée, his love. At the time, they're not engaged, but we'll get to that. She's the niece of that village priest that has the whole town in an uproar, because he has different beliefs.
Right.
So they already have hired Hopkins and Stern, so they're on their way. And of course, Richard Marshall, he's wants to protect her and everything like that. And basically, the guy's trying to get his niece out of there. He's trying to get Sarah out of there. So he's like, will you marry this one? I was going to ask your permission for that. Well, take her away immediately. And, and I don't think he understood the whole purpose of that.
Right.
Because he didn't get time to explain. He just wanted all right, get married, get out,
Yeah.
But if that happened, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
No.
So you got to have her stay. And of course, she sees all the torture.
For our entertainment.
Yeah, our voyeuristic pleasures. You know what I mean? So Hopkins and Stern, they round up suspects. The guy's accused at his home. He's tortured. He has needles stuck into his back because they're trying to call it was kind of, again, a whole made up thing. Find the devil's mark. So he had to carve up his back a little bit. Sticking needles in there, and
the concept behind it was disgusting. Like if they found a mole on you.
Yeah, a mole or whatever. They could call it whatever it is.
Yeah, they would. The theory was if they were to poke you with a needle, if you bled, you weren't a witch. If you didn't bleed, it was you were a witch. Where these ideas came from, who knows?
So Sarah, she's kind of naive, so she offers herself to Hopkins, thinking, "Oh, that'll save her uncle's life." Well,
Nope.
No. So what happens is Hopkins is called away to another village after he's, had fun with Sarah, So he's called away to another village. Stern takes advantage, his assistant, by raping her. So she allowed herself to get raped once, and now she's raped again. Whenever you do something like this in a movie, thinking, offering yourself to the villains, it never ends well, does it?
No, it doesn't seem like it.
So as I said, Hopkins is called away. Stern takes advantage. And then when Hopkins returns, he discovers that what Stern has done and refuses to interact with Sarah. He instructs Stern to begin torturing the priest again. And then Hopkins and Stern execute him anyway, along with 2 women, even though he said he would not kill him. Famous last words, right?
Right. You trust the villain.
So the young soldier, Marshall, returns, horrified what has happened to Sarah, vowing to kill both Hopkins and Stern. So, he thinks he's marrying in the presence of God and everything like that. He's obviously a very, very religious guy. So he's kind of holding back tears, and he's quote unquote married, and in what remains of the church that hasn't been destroyed. He rides off by himself. He leaves Sarah behind again, which is, that's never a good thing either.
No.
I don't know if taking Sarah with him would have helped, because he was in service of the army, the Roundheads, so he couldn't just up and leave. That'd be desertion.
Right.
And that's execution stuff.
Right.
In the meantime, Hopkins and Stern have become separated after a Roundhead patrol attempts to commandeer their horses, because that was the thing. They didn't have all the monarch behind them, backing their stuff. I mean, Cromwell had to kind of scrape for whatever he could get for his troops. So we're going to take your horses. Well, you're not going to intimidate Hopkins.
No.
He leaves Stern behind, and Stern almost dies. He gets shot. You know what he reminded me of? And I wonder if the Coen brothers had this in mind. Remember Javier Bardem's character in No Country for Old Men?
Right.
I kind of felt that way when he's literally taking the bullet out. It's like, this guy's unstoppable.
Yeah.
I mean, you think Hopkins is unstoppable. This guy is just, you think he's going to die, but no.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
So Stern is able to escape. He reunites with Hopkins and informs him of that young Roundhead's intentions. Okay, so Hopkins and Stern enter another village, Lavenham, on a patrol to locate the king. See, what the plot description leaves out is that Marshall almost got in trouble with the captain. The captain's like, I'm going to let this slide because you saved my life. But if you desert again, we can't be nice the next time. So he basically almost committed desertion because he wanted revenge.
Right.
And the captain understood it, kind of let this slide. But the king needs an escort. Make sure you take care of that, and I'll let bygones be bygones this time. But he kind of uses that as a way, okay, I'll help the king, but I can also get Hopkins and Stern at the same time. I can make a little detour. His friends, his commandants are, I don't think that's a good idea.
No.
So, trying to locate the king, the village of Lavenham is what it's called. He rides to the village with a group of soldier friends. However, having earlier learned that Sarah was in that town as well, again, they don't really kind of say why she was there, maybe some family members or something. They kind of allude to that, but they don't make it clear. This is where the movie kind of fell apart, in my opinion, was the end. It was great. The ending was kind of rushed.
Right.
I don't know if you felt that way, Adam.
I felt a little bit, yeah. It seems kind of pieced together.
Yeah, it's okay, we got to end this now.
Yeah.
And this is a movie, it was less than 90 minutes. It could have been 96, 97 minutes. Give it 10 more minutes just to see what, to keep the suspense a little bit, the tension going.
Yeah.
Because, they had a good thing going, and then it kind of fell apart at the end. Hopkins has set a trap to capture Marshall after finding out that this is the guy that's after him. And Hopkins and Stern frame him and Sarah as witches. Again, you don't like what I do? You're against me? Witches.
Yeah,
they're witches. And again, he just, hey, magistrate, pay me some money, and I'll take care of this problem for you. And a real law official would be like, no, we can't just do that. But no, we got to trust the Witchfinder.
Yep.
The self-appointed Witchfinder here. They take him back to the castle to be interrogated. Marshall watches as needles are repeatedly jabbed into Sarah's back, but he refuses to confess, instead vowing to kill Matthew Hopkins. Well, he breaks free from his bonds and stamps on Stern's face with his army comrades approaching the castle. Marshall grabs an axe, repeatedly strikes Hopkins. Soldiers enter the room, are horrified to see what their friend has done. One of them, his friend, puts mutilated but living Hopkins out of his misery by shooting him dead. And that, I guess Marshall just snapped, "You took him from me," over and over again. And Sarah, also on the brink of insanity, screams uncontrollably over and over again. Kind of, I wonder if Tobe Hooper kind of had that in mind with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There were some good close-ups that kind of reminded me, of what Hooper did. But that's how the movie ends. And that part is so frustrating because I don't know what you could have done to make the movie better than what it was. But it seems like, because Reeves was well on his way to proving himself, and he made a decent 4-star movie here. Mm-hmm. But it could have been a 5-star movie if it, maybe a little more shocking, or
sure, because
it's just like how easily Vincent Price is destroyed. It's like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, we need to finish this movie now.
I get it, and I agree with you that they could have not been so abrupt with the ending. But I mean, we're talking about regular human beings here. We're not like talking about supernatural monsters. So I mean, you kill a guy, you kill a guy.
No, but there were some nude scenes that were filmed. They were set in the pub involving the local wenches, as you hear them referred to.
Yeah.
But the sequences were solely intended for the film's German release. So again, what we have here is,
so the Germans got all the best parts.
Well, but from what I'm reading here, Reeves actually refused to take part in filming of those sequences, and they were completed by the crew after the initial versions of the scene had been shot. According to AIP's head of European productions, he appeared at the location only to ensure those additional scenes were filmed. The credits read, "Additional scenes by Lewis Hayward," who I just mentioned. And I guess this was an in-joke because of Reeves. Additional scenes meant some, excuse the French, prick of a producer putting his oar in and messing up what the director had done. And again, I mean, there are those additional scenes, but they don't really add anything to the story. So I'm trying to find out why the movie ended so abruptly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's puzzling. I can't find out why. Maybe because, we ran out of money and we got to do it.
Yeah.
But it just seemed so, the whole film leading up to it, there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of good. The shots were amazing.
Yeah.
Where they shot the film was brilliant. The old deserted church and the landscapes. It was a well shot movie.
Definitely,
it really was.
Definitely.
The score was amazing.
Yeah.
And it just was a letdown because the ending just okay. I maybe having a 10-minute duel is kind of stupid and cliche,
right?
But it ended kind of stupid, I thought.
Yeah,
not stupid, but it just felt too rushed.
It didn't have a satisfying ending.
No, it was underwhelming.
Yeah, maybe more of a fight between Marshall and Vincent Price would have kind of satisfied,
or maybe make an ambiguous ending.
Right.
That's what made The Wicker Man so effective. Is the protagonist dies,
right,
and it's left, okay, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And that's why The Wicker Man's so legendary. It was masterful because it ended in a different way.
Right.
Maybe, I'm not saying like have a Mike Myers thing, where's the body?
Right.
But, make a more ambiguous ending. And that's the thing. Matthew Hopkins died. He had some sort of illness, a virus.
Well, in real life, the history, the witch hunters and the pastors and priests who accused all these people they were never punished for any of it. No, basically, I know most about Salem. It came down to the King of England hearing about what was going on in Massachusetts, and was like, what the hell's going on there? Stop that. Someone get to Boston and tell them that needs to stop. And then it did, so
in case you're not, we were talking about the English Civil War. Matthew Hopkins was the son of a Puritan minister. His career was very brief. It was like 3 years. But him and his colleague, John Stearns, sent more accused people to be hanged for witchcraft than all other witch hunters in England of the previous 160 years.
Wow.
Solely responsible for the increase in witch trials during those years as well. I mean, little is known of Matthew Hopkins before he became the self-proclaimed witch hunter. There's no surviving documents either way. But he was born in Suffolk and was the fourth son of 6 children. So there is some stuff known about him. So Matthew Hopkins could not have been born before 1619 and could not have been no older than 28 when he died. He may have been as young as 25. So they really don't know much about this guy.
Right.
Other than, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of accused witches died because of him.
Yeah.
And his assistant. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to have some sort of documentary or something, but there's not a lot to say. No. I mean, everyone knows the few years he was a witch hunter, and again, there's not a lot of documents about that either.
And again, like most of the witch hunts that basically all of them were just brushed under the rug.
Right.
I mean, again, none of these people who killed all these innocent people, or put them to, legally banish them to death and sentence them to death. I mean, none of them were punished. It was basically, this is going to stop and you're never going to speak about it again. And so, I mean, who knows?
But he died of like an illness. Like, you think a guy of that nature with like all the hundreds of deaths the guy was responsible for, you think somebody would get him, but no.
Well, they were afraid. They were afraid. I mean, again, it's I mean, everybody, religion was. I mean, I hate to say it was taking. I guess I could say I would say in the 1600s. Because we hadn't really developed the science or understood science and nature. Mm-hmm. Anything that happened was because of God. Or the devil. And so, the culture is it's very easy to make people afraid. Right. It's very easy to scare people into thinking that.
Well, look what's happened the past 4 years here in our own country. I don't want to get too political, but people are still afraid. Right. They really are.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things. It was just, I hate to say easy, but I mean, again, when you don't know much and all you know is what you've grown up being told, and in that point in our human history, it was all religion.
Yes.
I mean, that's something to be terrified of. And now you got someone with however they got it, some sort of clout saying that you're a witch and you're possessed by the devil, you're doing the devil's work.
Yeah.
That's enough to scare anybody to back them.
Well, like the American side of this witch stuff, like the Crucible, kind of delved into that quite a bit.
Exactly.
And
that's just it. Parrish, from the pastor whose children basically damned all those people to death, by putting on their acts at the trials and stuff like that. He was never punished.
No,
he was never awesome. He was never kicked out of Salem. He was never. I mean, again, like I said, the governor showed up from Boston and said, "Whatever you're doing is going to stop."
Right,
and you're never going to talk about it. The fact that and all the records were ordered to be burnt. So the fact that we have those records still today is almost a miracle,
right?
To know what happened back then, because again, when the King of England and the governors caught on to what was happening and they put a stop to it, it was shut up. Right. Don't say anything about it and knock it off.
Kind of sound familiar?
Hey, okay.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, it's crazy how much sway these people had.
Yeah.
You know, you see it in this, you see it in Witchfinder General, and you see it in The Crucible. It's like, it's obvious to us.
Right.
But at the time, it's like no one dared to challenge this authority.
No, because you didn't know any better. You were scared.
And law enforcement, too.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
They went right along with
it. They actually held more power than the so-called Witchfinder.
Right.
You know, in that town, the law enforcement, but even they were duped.
Right. You know, and again, it's...
You even see a little bit at the end when they're torturing Sarah, the village magistrate, he's kind of hesitant about doing a lot of this stuff. And he's kind of having second thoughts.
Right.
You know, but it's like, wake up, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's, you know, you talk about those times and, you know, it's just, it goes to show how important like something like a freedom of religion is in our Constitution, because again, you know, 1692, the Puritans, man, if you strayed from that just a little bit from that Puritan lifestyle, you were in so much trouble, whether you were a witch or just tortured in public or humiliated in public. You know, it didn't even have to be an accusation of being a witch. I mean, like you committed infidelity, I mean,
that's what happens in the Crucible.
You were humiliated in front of the entire village. So,
that's what happened in the Crucible. You know, Proctor has an affair. With a woman, and the woman really loves him, wants him to leave, so she accuses his wife of witchcraft. And he damns her. And then she doesn't damn him, but it gets him into trouble too, because his wife has already been accused. Oh, he must be hold of her spell, and he's evil too. He needs to die.
Yeah, so it's
crazy.
And again, it just goes to show, you know, how easily people can be influenced, and how easily hysteria can be.
And Vincent Price does an amazing job showing his manipulation.
Exactly.
He's like a master manipulator, and he's very intimidating.
And back to the movie, you know, and I'll be the first to say, I think this is Vincent Price's scariest performance in all of his horror movies.
How cold he was.
He was very, and again, like I said at the beginning of the show, he wasn't the flamboyant Vincent Price that we all know and love. No. It was a very different performance from him. And you know, it was chilling.
Yes.
He was stone cold. He was just, he was a hunter of these witches, you know, and just, there was no compromise. It was like the Terminator, dude. He just, you know, he had his sights and it was kill.
Right.
And it's such a good performance by him.
Yeah, I just wish the movie would have ended up better. But anyone Dr. Phibes, who's a little more tragic of a character, but you see that kind of meanness come out in that movie. Well, it's like this is the movie that introduced us to a different side of Vincent Price.
Yeah, I mean, like he always had it, like when he turns in the pendulum. Yeah, you know, you can see the sinister and stuff like that. But Witchfinder General, he doesn't have to switch it. It's there from beginning to end.
Yeah. That cold stare is it's just such a horrifying presence. And he does such a great job. And, you know, he even said it's his favorite out of all the movies, all of his horror movies.
I can see why. And then again, it wasn't like a supernatural fantasy either. No. I mean, this is based in reality. I mean, and that alone it can be terrifying to think about.
Well, we talk about it. Is it a horror movie? And this is definitely a horror movie. And other movies that I've mentioned in the past, whether it be from Spielberg, Scorsese, whomever, those movies are just as probably even more so, because it's just real life people committing cold, calculated murder and not having second thoughts about it. Yeah. That's more horrifying than Mike Myers or anything else that, you know, the Terminator.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can be. Yeah. I mean, you know.
Yeah. And this movie is a good example of it.
Yeah.
Because it's truly terrifying that this guy everyone believes him. They're all brainwashed by him. They're all manipulated, and they're all afraid of him. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's going to mess around with Matthew Hopkins? You know?
No.
I mean, you know, that guy got lucky and broke free, but, you know, again, that was a rushed ending.
Yeah.
So, I would have loved to seen a different ending. It's just too bad. It's still a great movie and
wonderful movie.
We're talking about it 56 years later because all this master manipulation, our politicians and global elitists are doing this to us right now. So this is just as relevant as ever.
I mean, yeah, definitely the way our culture has behaved over the last 10 years. There's definitely a witch hunt vibe to it.
Right.
Thankfully we're not hanging and burning ourselves. We've evolved a little bit, but even still.
Well, they do it in other ways, like you said, they cast you out, they shut down your social media accounts, they make sure you don't get work, and it leads to depression, and then you kill yourself. That's what happens.
I mean, it happens, unfortunately, but hopefully, like back in the day, we start to smarten up and give each other a little bit of a break, regardless of what our beliefs and disagreements are. That's the moral of the story. Is you don't have to agree with everybody's views, but it doesn't mean you have to dislike them either, or hate them, or shut them out,
or kill them,
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about Tygon British Film Productions. That's the one who did most of this. Yes.
Yep.
American Pictures International. They helped fund it outside of England. But Tygon British Studios was based at Hammer House in London. And it was the competition for Hammer Studios. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So Tygon was literally at a Hammer location.
I mean, it does cool. Have a Hammer vibe to it.
It does. Hammer horror, It does. And it was founded, just in case you're not familiar with Tygon British Film Productions, Tony Tenser founded it in 1966. I mean, they did all sorts of stuff, but, Witchfinder General was their first huge success. And then later, Blood on Satan's Claw. And then there's The Creeping Flesh, The Sorcerers, Doomwatch, based on a TV series, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, I mean, they had a lot of big cult films back in the 60s and 70s, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's cool because Witchfinder General, you can find 88 films. I mean, of course, there's been other DVD and stuff like that. I mean, I think back in 2005, there was a DVD set of Tygon films released by Anchor Bay UK, which had Witchfinder General, The Body Stealers, The Haunted House of Horror, the other big folk, lore film of the time, The Blood on Satan's Claw, The Beast in the Cellar, Virgin Witch, and, unfortunately, it was only overseas, but Witchfinder General definitely found its home video history for sure. And, I mean, people loved The Conqueror Worm, but that was technically the Witchfinder General.
Right.
So, again, I mean, there was a lot of controversy with this film. Not since Peeping Tom had there been such a controversy over the violence. Because, I mean, when Peeping Tom came out, we were just talking about that film, the brilliant Michael Powell film. Psycho hadn't even been released at the time.
Sure.
Came out the same year.
Yeah.
But it was like 4 or 5 months before Psycho came out.
Yeah.
So that was shocking. That was literally, and especially Michael Powell, who's known for the lush fantasy war epics and stuff, to make a film like Peeping Tom. But yeah, Witchfinder General inspired American International Pictures to produce more movies, including, let's see, the Premature Burial, The Cry of the Banshee. Both had, I believe, Vincent Price in them too.
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of that stuff, but American Pictures International really they cashed in more than I think Tygon did.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, this film just had such a huge cult following on it, and home video versions. So let's talk about that, because the export version, which contained both the previously cut violence and alternative shots of topless nudity, like I mentioned earlier, was passed uncut by the BBFC in 95 and released on VHS in 2001. A DVD, though, was released in the UK, consisting of two versions: the complete director's cut, which contains the 2 minutes of previously censored violence, and the, of course, export version with violence intact and the nudity shots. In both versions, the 2 minutes of violence have been taken from what has been described as a grainy VHS source. And, of course, critics complained that watching the film this manner was jarring, distracting. And the soundtrack of the newly inserted nude shot, say that 3 times fast, had snippets of audio repeating itself because of the timing involved in inserting the previously cut footage. Man, what a complicated thing, huh?
Yeah.
In the U.S., though, while censorship of the film has never been a factor, there was a lot of numerous delays in appearing on home video. You know, when Orion Pictures acquired the rights to many of American International Pictures titles in the 80s, they were unwilling to purchase rights to the musical soundtrack. So, Witchfinder General was one of the soundtracks that they were unwilling to purchase for some reason.
Really?
What a brilliant score.
Yeah.
Why would you want a different score in there? But, well, they replaced... I haven't seen this on any other video source, but did you ever watch this on VHS or anything?
No,
DVD?
no.
Well, apparently they replaced the brilliant musical score with synthesizer scores. And I guess Kendall Schmidt was the synthesizer dude. And I'm not knocking him. I mean, he was doing what he was hired to do. Mm-hmm. But they described Schmidt's rescoring as a betrayal to every effort the original film made to remain true to its time frame. Yeah, because you get the 1600s vibe with the musical score. And it's like, why do that?
Yeah.
I know George Lucas had that option. He kind of toyed around with having synthesizers with Star Wars. Well, thankfully, it had more.
Do that,
yeah. Oh my God! Just imagine no John Williams rousing score and everything.
I mean, don't give me the original Star Wars, trilogy. It's a brilliant trilogy. But yeah, the music is such a key part. It's so key to those movies.
And you watch the Witchfinder General in the United States. We didn't get that amazing score until DVD and Blu-ray and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's nothing wrong with Kendall Schmidt. This happened with Metropolis too. They pop in some Giorgio Moroder score, which was okay. And I'm not saying comparing the two because Giorgio Moroder's score actually fit with the vibe of Metropolis, but this I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. But Ferris's original score was not available in the U.S. until I'm trying to find the exact date, but I guess 2007 when a restored version was released on DVD under the Midnight Movies banner. I remember Midnight Movies. Yeah. You probably experienced more of those Midnight Movies DVDs than I did. I don't remember which one I purchased. I think I had one of them way back, but they had the complete uncut version of the film with that score. So the movie gets released on home video and distributed in the United States in the 80s. So unless you saw like the actual Witchfinder General in England, almost 40 years we had to wait until we heard the Ferris score, which is such a brilliant score.
Right.
I mean, it just, to me, it's a character in the movie itself.
Yeah.
Just like the landscapes are a character unto itself.
Right.
But Price's opening and closing narration was tacked on, of course, to the Conqueror Worm version, as I mentioned, as well as the alternate nude scene. So that right there, 2007, was when I think here in America we could finally rejoice that we had the most decent version of Witchfinder General at that time. And then there was a UK Blue release in June of 2011. The Blu-ray actually utilized the same high-def transfer as the MGM DVD, completely uncut. And then Scream Factory included the film as well as part of the company's multi-title Vincent Price Blu-ray box set in 2013. But fast forward 10 years later, you have 88 films releasing a 4K. So not only did this movie get released on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, but now 4K. And to have it be released on 4K is a huge testament because that's the most expensive home video to produce. And very few movies are getting a 4K release.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. It's frustrating. The Quiet Man, The Searchers, many of John Ford's iconic classics, still have yet to see a 4K release. But it just speaks volumes for the demand for the Witchfinder General.
Sure. And
56 years later.
And again, and you can find it anywhere, not just physical. Like I watched it on Pluto this week.
But if you want the 4K version, the only way you can do that is 88 Films as of right now.
Yeah.
And 88 Films they've been doing amazing work, and that was their kickoff. They're actually releasing a lot of the Tygon video movies. So they also released The Blood on Satan's Claw. And they've got a Western. I don't know if you ever heard of this Western, Adam. I know you're not a Western fan, but I haven't even seen this one.
Who said I'm not a Western fan? It's just not my go-to genre.
Well, yeah, it's not your cup of tea. We know that. But you've got I forget the name of it off the top of my head because I haven't seen it, and I was just kind of shocked that Raquel Welch was in a Western with Christopher Lee.
Oh, wow.
Tygon Studios released it. Yeah. And, of course, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee did a lot of movies for Tygon Studios that I'm finding out. So, I mean, Tygon Studios, if you love horror films, you love Hammer, they're probably upset, but watch some of Tygon stuff, too. It's hard to rival Hammer, but these guys, they did a lot of good stuff in the 60s and 70s for sure.
Yeah.
But highly recommend. I mean, again, even though the ending to me is just kind of frustrating, it's very underwhelming, it's still an amazing watch. And, it's definitely one, I mean, obviously I have the 4K, so I'll keep watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love this movie. It ranks high. It's definitely in the 4 category for me.
You've probably seen it a lot more than I have.
I wouldn't call it a regular watch, but I watch it more than I would an average movie.
You watch it more than a Western.
Depending on the Western.
We'll talk about that another day.
But yeah, it's awesome movie. Vincent Price he's a powerhouse in it. So, I mean, just watch it for him.
Right. Well,
I mean, so.
And again, Michael Reeves, it's a shame that his career got so tragically cut short because he had a good eye.
Yeah.
And even though he was not an easy director, I kind of, he's almost up there with Werner Herzog and William Friedkin with how demanding and how much of a jerk he could be on the set.
Yeah.
And you hear about William Friedkin wanting to kill his leading man on the set of his movies. And, of course, William Friedkin shooting off guns, smacking people. It's like, wow. This guy could have easily been that way. Again, it's a legacy that is, it's like Bruce Lee to a certain degree. It's like, man, what could this guy have done?
Unfulfilled legacy.
Unfulfilled. Yeah. But man, I mean, people are talking about the Witchfinder General. I mean, it's the material in this movie is scary because some people are kind of living through this right now.
Well, I mean, and again,
the whole judgment.
And I'll even go so watch the movie, and if you like, if it fascinates you, and go down that rabbit hole and see what happened in the 16th century.
Right. Both over England and United
here.
States.
Yeah, right in our backyard.
Yeah.
So I mean,
this kind of stuff happened all over the world.
It's really I mean, I'm a student of history, and I love that sort of stuff. So it's easy for me to go down those rabbit holes. But
research Matthew Hopkins again. There's not as much, but I mean, there's a lot of some documentations of this 3-year stretch where they say at least 500 deaths because of him. Man, that's crazy.
It's and again, you and I, we literally live 3 hours away from Salem, Massachusetts,
right?
And,
there's a lot of crazy stuff.
I've been there, to stand on that ground where all that happened, and it's just you feel it, you feel that the energy, and from what happened back, 300 some odd years ago now.
Yeah.
So again, but back to the movie. It's a wonderful movie. So
it's a great film.
Especially if you're into the witch hunting and witchcrafts, and Vincent Price again.
It's very entertaining. It goes by. I mean, the movie's 86 minutes. It just moves. Even if you watch The Conqueror Worm, there's again it's just the added the forced Edgar Allan Poe stuff at the beginning and the end. But it's still an amazing watch. Either one you watch for sure. You can even watch the nudity version. That's the thing. The 88 films included pretty much every cut you could think
Sure.
of on there.
Yeah.
So highly recommend Witchfinder General. That's it. And I always forget to do this, Adam. Please subscribe. You've been listening for the past 40, 50 some odd minutes. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment. Tell us what you think of Witchfinder General.
I was just saying, like, comment,
Yeah.
Spread the word, conversate with us. Tell us what you want to listen to. What do you want us to check out and talk about?
We will be doing videos soon. Trust me. You'll be able to see us, rant, discourse.
That might be very scary in its own right, but you'll still get a visual.
Yes. But yeah, please subscribe. Comment below. Give us some feedback. Maybe you want us to talk about a specific movie, genre, whatever. I mean, if it's cult, if it's horror, we'll talk about it. You know what I mean? So let us know. Follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are Scared for Reals.
We'll see you next time on Scared for Reals.